Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal's Fast Break High School Basketball Show with your host, James Yodice. This show is sponsored by Western New Mexico University.
Hey, welcome everyone. I am James Yodice. I am the prep sports editor at the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome to Fast Break, our high school basketball podcast. This is going to be our last podcast of the season. It is now the Wednesday after the state tournament has finished up. So we're going to go over all the results from last week and talk quickly about the 10 state champions. And I have a special guest in studio who I am going to introduce in just a minute or two. First thing, actually, just before I sat down, I thought I should get this out and about. I got a text right before I sat down that Los Lunas High School is going to have a new boys basketball coach next season. Travis Julian, who's been there, I think, about a dozen years with the Tigers and has done a tremendous job with them, has resigned. So Los Lunas will be soon looking for a new coach. This is a bit of a strange development, I would say, only in the fact that he's got arguably the state's most talented player, Jalen Highland, coming back next season. So I wanted to get that out of the way at the forefront. Now, we're going to talk a lot of state basketball today. We're going to start with the boys, and then we're going to bring in my guest. We'll get to the girls a little bit later. I want to run down some of the results that we had from the state tournament last week. We'll work from bottom to top. So Fort Sumner and House, the co-op, won their second straight Class 1A state title. They beat Magdalena 45-38. Magdalena was the one seed in that game. That's the second straight year Fort Sumner has beaten Magdalena in the finals, so congratulations to the Foxes. The Academy for Technology in the Classics, that was a fun story this year to follow. They lost in the state final last year to Pecos. They were pretty much the best team in 2A all year, almost beat West Mesa, a 5A team, going back to the Belen tournament in December. ATC beats up on Pecos in the rematch, 63-37. So they win the Class 2A state title, first state title for them. I always love welcoming the first-timers in terms of the state champions. So congrats to ATC. Navajo Prep from Farmington also won its first state basketball title. Navajo Prep beat Robertson 60-50. In the 3A state final. Navajo Prep hadn't even played in a state championship game since 1976, and they were known as Navajo Mission back then. So it had been a long haul for Navajo Prep. And, of course, Navajo Prep and Fort Sumner both swept both the boys and the girls titles. We'll talk about the girls in a little bit. 5A, Volcano Vista completes the historic three-peat. They beat Oregon Mountain 47-34. Volcano Vista becomes the first big school boys program from Albuquerque to win 3 titles in a row. Just an incredibly dominant run. I believe they're 88-2, over their last 3 seasons, and both of those losses were to Cleveland. So Volcano just had a tremendous year, and now next year they get to go for that Hobbs record, 1999 to 2002. Hobbs won 4 straight titles with Russ Gilmore as coach. And now Volcano is going to have that in their sights. And they have the state's 2 best players, Kenyon Aguino and David Lunn, both coming back. And a quick side note about David Lunn, Monday, David received a scholarship offer from Penn State. I reposted it on my Twitter account. But what I did not realize at first, until yesterday when I called David, was that this is not a basketball offer. This is actually a football offer. Now, David used to be a very good Yaffle player, but he has not played football at Volcano Vista, not yet. And he told me yesterday he's thinking about it. But Penn State's director of recruiting services knew David's father back in the day, knew what a great athlete he was. They've been monitoring David Lunn here in Albuquerque. David said they've watched his body develop, and the kid looks like a tight end. Or a defensive end, maybe a wide receiver with his size and hops. So Penn State has offered David Lunn in football, not in basketball. I originally thought it was basketball. I just assumed it was basketball. So after I called David and Greg Brown, the Volcano coach, yesterday, I came to realize that this was a football offer. So now David told me he was going to take the summer and think about it and decide whether he wanted to add football to what he's already doing with basketball, and he's already one of the best players in the state as a freshman. So I thought that was an interesting development. But all congrats to Greg Brown at Volcano. And Greg becomes the only person I know of in my career, and I covered Greg as a student and a player at Albuquerque Academy going back to the late 80s. Greg is the only one that I know of that has now won 3 titles in a row as a player and 3 titles in a row as a coach, which is just a phenomenal thing. I think he won titles 89 through 91, I believe, playing for his dad at Academy, and now the last 3 titles with Volcano as head coach. So congratulations to all of them. Now, we skipped over the 4A boys, and that's where I'm going to bring in my guest. This is Justin Woody, the Highland High School boys basketball coach. The Hornets just won the Class 4A title last Saturday, 45-44 in overtime against Highland's second title in 3 years. Justin, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to coming in and talking about the Hornets.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about the Hornets. First I want to know, how long does it take a coach to decompress at the end of a season? So we're sitting here on Sunday. So it's been about 4 days since you beat Valley in the pit. How long does it take a coach to just wake up and say, okay, I'm good and I'm ready to start thinking about the next season?
Yeah, it takes a few days. Fortunately for us, we have spring break next week. So my wife, Donna, has a long honey-do list for me, so that keeps me pretty humble of remodeling and things to do. But it takes a few days, and I haven't been home after school since October, so it's kind of weird.
No traveling?
No, not yet.
I heard, okay, so APS spring break is longer than it used to be. At least I went to Cibola, so it's longer now than it used to be. It's like a week and a half now?
Yeah, that's correct. It's we get off next Wednesday and then are off the whole next week.
Man, I went to school at the wrong time, man. That's all there is to it. So basically 10 or 11 day break as opposed to the 9-day break we used to have. So who had the blue trophy on Saturday night and Sunday? Where was it?
That was at my house, right on the fireplace with the bracket and the blue trophy. So
where is it now?
It is now at the trophy shop. Our athletic director, John Barnhill, took it to the trophy shop because we have everybody's names engraved at the bottom, so it's pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
All the coaches, players, managers, our principal, and athletic director.
On the blue trophy?
On the blue trophy.
Do a lot of teams do that?
I don't know. We have our 2022 trophy has it as well, and it's in the trophy case there at Highland, and it's got all the members of the team, a little plaque on the bottom of it there.
That's interesting. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Now that I hear you say that, I'm like, almost like the Stanley Cup. You engrave the names of all the players and coaches from that team, and you just add them. I like that idea.
And that way, when they're old, our age, and their kids don't believe them that they were a state champion, there's the proof right there.
I think it should be like the Stanley Cup. All the kids on the team and the coaches should all get a day with the trophy.
Yeah.
Until it takes up permanent residence somewhere at Highland in the trophy case next to the 2022 trophy and whatnot. I think that's the way it should be.
I like it.
And of course, if we go back to 2022, that was the first state title for Highland in 50 years, and there was a lot of symmetry to the win you had over Del Norte, and you had lost in the finals to Valley in overtime when we had the empty pit during the pandemic in 2020. So that is 3 state title appearances in the last 5 seasons for Highland, and we're going to talk about a few different things, but I'm wondering, as you reflect on that, that's hard to do. I mean, there are a lot of tremendous basketball programs in the 4A division, as there are in any division, but how would you describe these last few seasons and the level of success you have attained?
Well, thank you for mentioning that. And I tell the boys all the time, this is very difficult, and don't take for granted what is happening right now. I coached for 9 years before getting the job at Highland in 2017, and we had never made the pit one time when I was an assistant in 9 years. And then to be in 3 championship games in 5 seasons is I'm really proud of that. But we talk all the time that let's just continue to work hard because you never know what's going to happen.
There are any number of people that would specifically point to you and say the reason for this change is you and the culture you've brought in. I didn't play basketball, so this is hard for me to understand at an organic level, but how do you describe the entire process from when you took over and how it has sort of cultivated and grown this program to where we are now, where this team is now clearly at the top of the division?
Yeah, I think there's 2 primary things that I can identify. Number one is our work ethic. I mean, I know there's a lot of teams who work really hard, but we practice year-round, and we're really dedicated and push each other to be better. And the second thing is the kids know that I have their back, and I love them, and will do anything for them as long as they're doing the right things. And I'm going to push them to be better people, better basketball players. So I think they can tell that. And then they want to play for you and play hard and do the things that you're asking them to do.
So how long does it take before anyone, players or coaches, are sitting down and are like, okay, great, we've celebrated. Now it's time to start thinking about 2024-25.
They asked me that Saturday night after the game, and I said, well, let's just get a few days off first, and we'll kind of probably get back to it after spring break, a couple weeks.
So let's talk about last week in a little bit more in detail. So Highland completes one of the really most unusual paths to a state title for a 1 seed that I have ever seen in my career, and I've seen a few teams. So you were in trouble in every round. You were losing to Los Alamos, the 16 seed, going into the fourth quarter of the first round. Grants was giving you all kinds of trouble in the quarterfinals. And, of course, St. Pius, your nemesis for the year. This ends up being a close game, too. So you end up beating Los Alamos 57-51, a game, and you were only trailing by 1 going into the fourth quarter. Grants, you beat 61-50. That's a district rival. And then St. Pius, another district rival, you beat 60-56. I want to go back, before we even talk about the Valley game and the championship game, between the third and the fourth quarters of the Los Alamos game. So, boom, third quarter ends, teams come over to their bench. You're losing. You're the 1 seed, and you're losing. And you believe you have a team that can win state. And this team has won a lot of close games this year, as you mentioned in the post game the other night. But I'm wondering if you had any anxiety at all, or you saw any concern on the faces of your players, like, how could we be losing this team? We're the number 1 seed. How could we be losing going into the fourth quarter? And what the message might have been between the third and the fourth quarters that night in the first round.
Yeah. It's an easy answer to say, but I truly believe, Los Alamos had 2 really good players, Nico Garcia and Josiah Fresquez. Those guys shot the lights out, especially in the first half. I think they missed 5 shots the whole first half as a team. So we went in at halftime, actually down 6, and we said, well, they're shooting the ball really well. We've taken their best shot. Surely they can't continue to shoot this well. And then we were kind of able to claw back and cut it to 1 there at the end of the third quarter. And I think it's the experiences that you talked about. We had been in so many close games, overtime games, even games which we lost. We lost to Volcano, Academy, Cibola. All 3 of those games we had a shot to win in the final seconds, and it didn't go through. So the kids, we had been in those situations plenty of times.
So you come out and you take care of Los Alamos. And coaches, coaches are always saying this, and reporters kind of roll their eyes usually when coaches say this. Well, there's no way that team's a 16 seed. There's no way that team's a 7 seed. There's no way that team. Coaches, I think, look at these state tournament games and think, in a one-off, you never know.
Yeah. That's what makes it so special, is anything can happen. It's not a series like the pros. It's not a 7-game series. You just have to be good for one night for 32 minutes. And Los Alamos was really, really good at Highland on that Saturday night.
Yeah. If we fast forward to the St. Pius game in the semifinals, which I think is the game after it was over, you jumped about 8 feet in the air. I don't think that was the Grants game. I think that was the Pius game. You could tell that almost there was a big weight. My sense was we knew St. Pius was dangerous. They'd already beaten us. They'd taken us to overtime a couple of other games that we won. But St. Pius had been a real thorn and was a matchup problem. Not that they weren't for other teams, but they were a particular problem for you. And I sensed just a sense of real elation when that one was finished. I'm glad I don't have to see these guys anymore until next year.
Yeah, that's exactly what you saw. We played 6 times this year, and to win 5 games against a top 4 team in the state is really hard to do. Coach Myers does a great job. We've played, I think it's 15 times since we joined this district 4 years ago. 4 years ago. We've played 15 times, and so many of those 15 games have come down to the wire. So it's a sense of relief, a sense of joy and pride when the buzzer goes off and we've advanced to the finals.
So you and I apparently shop at the same grocery store. So we ran into each other several weeks back, and we were talking about St. Pius. And I don't even remember when this was. I don't know if it was between the playoff game and the district final.
It was right before the district tiebreaker game at La Cueva.
And we were joking, and you said that you and Ryan Myers, the St. Pius coach, had said, you know what, the hell with it. Let's just put 2 minutes on the clock. Let's just make the score 50-50, and let's just start from there. There's no point in doing it any other way.
Yeah.
And we had a good laugh about it. But I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, and the game I think was the next day or the 2 days later, and somebody was texting me. This would have been the district tournament championship game. And that game was actually tied 50-50.
Into the third quarter.
At the end of the third quarter, and I just laughed. I'm like, of course it is. And I almost wonder whether you and Ryan might have looked at each other at the end of that third quarter like, yeah, see? Yeah, why would we play all these 3 quarters? There's no point. Let's just do 8 minutes and settle it.
Yeah, Ryan has a crazy stat, and I wish I would have wrote it down or remembered what it was, but he has a stat of the 6 games of, he says, you've outscored us, whatever it was, in the final minute of these 6 games. So, I mean, literally the game has come down to the final minute or two 6 times.
I know, that was impressive.
Education and training at Western New Mexico University is accessible from every corner of the land of enchantment, providing limitless opportunities towards success for more than a century. And now, through the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, tuition and fees are covered for anyone looking to start or start over. Along with free tuition, books are always included for every WNMU student, assuring your only worry is how far you can actually go. Lift off toward your future and endless potential at WNMU today.
So as we fast forward now, let us talk now about Valley in the state championship game. This is a team that you beat by, I think, 13 way back in early December. So the two of you had sort of been circling among many other good teams in 4A, like Academy, like Artesia, like Hope, like Pius. So we get down to it, and I'm thinking back to when the brackets came out and we had that little, blip between who was actually seeded number 1. And really what it came down to was you got the 1 seed because you had a 1-game better record than Valley. Mm-hmm. I think you were 23-6, they were 22-6 or something. And it really came down to the fact that you had to play St. Pius in a playoff game, and you picked up the extra win. Without that, maybe Valley was the 1 seed, and they would have had to go through Grants and St. Pius. These two teams were extremely closely matched, according to the criteria on paper.
Yes.
I didn't see the first game in December. But as we get into the game, it was a very strange game. You slowly put together a lead. I think you were up 8 in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. And then Julian Chavez from Valley played what I said was the best quarter, the best quarter of basketball I saw anybody play the entire week, boy or girl. And Valley now leads 41-34 with 2:26 left in regulation. Now, you've already been through these 3 games with Los Alamos, with Grants, and St. Pius, but now you're down 7 to Valley, which is a whole nother thing. Easy Panas, the Valley coach, he's got a tremendous team, and like you, both very good defensive clubs. You got to find a way to make up a 7-point deficit against that team in 2.5 minutes. And I want you to repeat what you said in the press conference about trying to force the pace and create some chaos, and hopefully that would lead to getting back in the game.
Yeah. Obviously, the first time we had played in December was our second game of the season, and going back and reviewing all the stats, that was the second best shooting game we had this season. I think we shot like 57, 59% for the game, and they didn't have Tyler Kozlowski, who's an outstanding player. So, kind of in the back of our minds, we're kind of thinking that we'd see them at some point. We didn't know if it'd be in the finals or semifinals or when it would be. Coach Easy has done an amazing job with that group, and they had, so many good seniors, and we're on such a roll. So I think what you saw there is both teams were really prepared. Both teams were played really well on the defensive side. It was really tough for us to get open shots. I think we made it tough for them to get open shots. And so when we got down by 7 with 2:26 to go, I thought if we could just make a basket so we can start pressing and kind of make the game a little bit chaotic and start flying around, that would be in our favor because Valley's so good in the half court. They execute their stuff so well, both offensively and defensively, that if we could get the game going a little bit up and down, then we'd have the advantage. So
we get down to the final 30 seconds. You're down 3, and the ball is in Jesus Licon's hands. And Jesus is, I think we would all describe him. I've described him as a fearless shooter. I mean, look, he's just one of those guys. When he steps over half court, you have to be careful. Now, maybe not necessarily at the pit, which is a larger size court, but at most high school gyms where it's a little tighter, he steps over the half court line, and I'm thinking, I wonder if this kid is actually thinking, if they play off me just enough, yeah, I'm going to shoot right from here, and that's a kid that'll put up a 30-footer in a heartbeat.
Right.
And you trust him to do this, yes.
Yes.
And so he makes about a 25-footer. I don't know exactly what the distance was with 25 seconds left, ties the game. You have to survive a late shot by Valley to get to overtime. And then we get one free throw from Raul Stanford with, I think, 2:42, if memory serves, in the overtime. And that's it. That's the only point of the entire overtime. He misses the first one, makes the second one, and that's it. And at the end, you have to watch Valley again get 3 shots at it.
Yeah.
I think Kozlowski had one, Chavez had one, Rosendo Roybal, I think, had the last shot along the baseline, which didn't quite make it to the rim. And I'm wondering what must have been going through all of your heads and your hearts as Valley's down there with the ball, and any one of these shots is going to end your season probably. I don't know what everybody's thinking in those last few seconds, which, of course, must seem like they take 5 minutes if you're sitting on the Highland bench.
Yeah, well, going back to Jesus, you had talked about him taking that 25-footer, and we do trust him to do that. He might be the first person. I don't know if there's any records of this, but our first game of the season against Sandia, he hits a 3-point shot to win the game. A week later, he hits a 3-quarter court shot against Centennial to win the game. And then he's had several other games where he's made shots in the final minute or 30 seconds, not buzzer beaters like those two, but the kid is unbelievable. He's probably made 4 or 5 game-winning type of shots just this season for us. He actually beat Valley as a sophomore last year, a buzzer beater, his sophomore year last year at Highland. So he's the first person that, like you said, he's just going to put up a 3, and every shot he shoots, you expect it to go in. But then, those last 24 seconds of regulation, that seemed like an eternity. It felt like the ball was bouncing around on the rim there in slow motion for me. And then they had 3 shots at the end of overtime. I had no idea that 1 point would hold up, but I'm glad that it did.
Yeah, I think we were all surprised by that. To not have a field goal in the overtime between 2 really good offensive teams, 2 good defensive teams, but 2 teams with kids that can score the basketball. I don't think any of us imagined that 1 point was going to sit out there and end up being the difference in the state title. Let's talk about Jesus for a second. So he's a junior. He'll be back next year. He makes more threes this year than any kid from the metro area has ever done in a single season. He passed Bryce Alford on this list toward the end of the season. I don't know the number that he finished with for the season. I do not believe he got close to the state record, which was like $160 something. But no boy or girl, for that matter, has ever made more 3-pointers in a single season in the metro area than Jesus did. I only got a chance to see you guys a couple of times during the regular season, and I caught you guys on bad nights. Once at Academy, I think he had a really rough day. It was a Saturday afternoon game. He struggled a bit. And then the home game at the end of the season against St. Pius, the game that you lost that ended up forcing the playoff in the first place. And I wouldn't say he played great in either game, but you could see you can see the special talent, and you can just see the kid believes in himself. And you believe in him, more importantly, and his teammates believe in him. And you get it. I mean, a kid like that can run hot and cold.
Yeah.
But he had such a tremendous year lighting it up. And as you talked about, so many big either buzzer-beating baskets or game-winning baskets. What did he mean to this entire season?
Well, yeah, he scored 146 threes he finished with, which is second all-time. The most was 164, so he was a ways off of that. But and the thing that is so amazing about that in my eyes is, from after the first few games of the season when people didn't really know as much about who he was, because I think he made 10 threes the first game of the year against Sandia, and then continued kind of hot to start the season. But, I mean, he was being double and triple teamed and trapped and boxed in one, diamond in one the whole season. And so to make that many shots with the defense focused on you was truly amazing. But, yeah, we have confidence in him as teammates. He's a great kid, hard worker. We're really proud of him, and I'm definitely happy that he's a Hornet.
And so many other key contributors, Raul Stanford, Isai Herrera, number 13, the left-handed kid, and a kid who I had not seen play really that well. I shouldn't put it that way. Not score as well in a game until the last game, which was Sebastian Hernandez,
yes.
Right? who comes up with a great effort. And I even texted you a little bit later that day. I'm like, that kid seemed like the unsung hero in this game, a kid that is probably your number 4 scoring option, and comes up with just a bunch of key baskets in this game.
Yeah, so Sebastian had a great championship game. He scored 3 possessions in a row, scored 10 points, but 6 points and 3 consecutive possessions in the third quarter there. We had missed him some. He's our second best defender, our second leading rebounder, second in assists, kind of does a lot of the little things. He separated his shoulder that Saturday, the next morning after we lost to Pius in the regular season. So we didn't have him in the district tiebreaker game or the district tournament championship. So it was a big boost for us to get him back for the state tournament. Isai really improved as the season went along, hit some huge threes. I think he scored 23 points in that district championship game, had 5 3-pointers. And then just so proud of Raul, the leadership that he had. He's a 2-time state champion. He's the only one that's left from the 2022 team. And just his leadership, his toughness. And then he had a big semifinal game too. I think he scored 19 points in the semifinals. So like you said, different guys stepping up at different times was just huge for us.
And I think of your team a little bit the way I thought about Del Norte 2 years ago with Shane Dumas Sanchez. And even to a lesser degree, I shouldn't say to a lesser degree, to a similar degree with Bella Hines at El Dorado. You're talking about a team with an incredible alpha scorer and just an amazing offensive presence, somebody that cannot really be defended. That was true of Shane. Mm-hmm. That certainly is true of Bella. And same with Jesus. And you got teams with that score, a kid that's going to give you 30 plus a night, maybe more. I think Dumas Sanchez even had a 60-point game his senior year 2 years ago when they lost to you in the finals. And if you can just find enough pieces, and I really noticed this with the El Dorado girls this year. El Dorado found enough pieces around Bella Hines. They didn't have a true number 2, kind of like Jalen Bates and Natalia Chavez were at Volcano Vista, or even Kenny Neguino and David Lund at Volcano this year. They didn't necessarily have a true number 2, but they had kids in that 2 through 7 that will just give you enough boards, would score the basketball just enough, would just be productive enough to allow Bella to do her thing. And this would be the case for any elite scorer. If you have the other pieces, your number 1, your alpha kid, whoever that might be, really has a better chance to lead that team a little bit further.
Yeah, we that was always one of the goals of us, is to get some other guys in double figures, because Jesus required so much attention and so much focus of the defense that we told the guys, you got to be able to make layups, get offensive rebounds, and put the ball back in, and then catch and shoot threes, because you're going to have the opportunity you're going to have time to catch and shoot from 3-point range. So we had guys step up. Owen Chang was huge in the pit.
Right, another kid.
DJ Spurwell off the bench had some big offensive rebounds, some putbacks, and those are 4-6 points that kind of don't seem like much, but those are huge, and it opens up space for Jesus and the other guys on the court when you have to guard those guys too.
I want to shift gears for a second and talk about 4A basketball in general. So the last 3 years we've had an all-Albuquerque final. We had Highland Del Norte in 2022. We had Academy and Hope last year. We had Highland and Valley. This year, that's 5 different 4A schools just in Albuquerque that have played in a state championship game in the last 3 seasons. And there has become, and sometimes these things are cyclical, sometimes they're not. I'd like to get your take on this. There's a separation going on right now between the powers in Albuquerque and everybody else, whether it's Taos or Artesia or whoever. There's a separation going on right now. What is your perspective on this? Is this something that we're going to continue to see?
A couple of things that come to mind when you talk about that. First, you talked about the all-Albuquerque finals. This is actually the 5th year in a row in 4A the number 1 seed has won the state championship. So, the year before we did it in 22, Del Norte was seeded number 1. We were 8. They beat us and went on to win the finals. And then in 2020, we were the 3 seed and lost to Valley, who was the 1 seed, and went back to back. So 5 years in a row, the 1 seed has won the championship.
And that game, oddly enough, was in overtime, too.
Yes.
The 2020 pandemic season. And I was sitting on pressure. Actually, I think I was doing color commentary for a radio station as a way to get in the building because they weren't letting anybody in, which was a bizarre experience, but that's a completely separate story.
Yeah, but as far as Albuquerque 4A teams, I think, there's so many great programs around the state, but I think it comes down to we kind of get our teeth kicked in kind of now in the spring and summer by the Volcanoes and La Cuevas and these teams. So, that we play really good teams kind of year round in fall league and in spring AAU stuff and summer basketball. So, I don't know. I feel for us, there's always teams who are a lot better than us. So it keeps us motivated to continue to push and get better and get better. And we play a really, I think we ended up with the hardest strength of schedule by Max Preps in 4A. And we're always in the top 1, 2, 3 and strength of schedule because we play, the Volcano Vistas and the Clevelands and these teams in our non-district portion of the schedule.
Yeah, and you played Navajo Prep, who won
did.
the 3A state title at the Rio Rancho tournament, and they beat you in the first round.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, you obviously weren't probably paying much attention to them, but watching them win state, probably you're thinking, you know what? We played them, and even though they beat us, that was a good team. That was a really good team.
Oh, I was watching and I was cheering for them because I wanted to, that was another game where we got up big. I think Jesus scored 48 in that game. We got up big. Then they had a huge third quarter, kind of like they did in the state championship game, and they took the lead on us by 15 or 17, if I remember correctly. And then we had a frantic rally kind of in the fourth quarter too. And they had a great team this year.
And it's funny, their coach in the post game, I asked him directly about that because if you looked at their schedule, all 4 of their losses came to teams that were 4A or 5A. They lost to Valley. They lost. I'm sorry. Yeah, they lost to Valley. They lost to Hope. They lost to Clovis, and they lost to Las Cruces. But they went out and played some of these bigger schools. Now, for the 4A schools here, it works out perfect because you've got Cleveland over here, La Cueva over here, Volcano over here, Atrisco Heritage out here. You can go play these elite 5A schools without taxing your travel budget and just, thickens your skin, when we get to March.
It's a big advantage for us. Sometimes we don't always have the best record going into district, but we've played, some of the top teams. And that 2020 team that you were talking about, they were 11-10 going into district, and we reeled off 10 wins in a row and went on to the state championship game. And it's because we played, so many good teams before getting into district.
And speaking of which, I want to get your perspective on this as a coach. So Volcano and, all you coaches know each other pretty well, even if some are 4A coaches and some are 5A coaches. Everybody knows Greg pretty well. To see what he's done, 3 straight titles at the 5A division, which is so deep with teams. I mean, we saw within the last 10 years, we saw Rio Rancho go out and win state as an 11. Then the very next year, Volcano goes out and wins state as a 12 seed. So the depth in 5A boys basketball is generally considered, and I think it was Travis Julian who told me this. He said the depth in 5A boys basketball is better than any other individual sport. And I don't have any reason not to believe that. But you have watched what Greg has done to keep a team at the top playing at this level, and they got their 2 top kids coming back. So they're going to be an overwhelming favorite to win it again next year. As a coach, can you show some appreciation for keeping a team and sustaining this level of excellence for as long as Volcano has now done these last 3 seasons?
Yeah, it's amazing what Greg has done. I actually messaged him to say congratulations. They're the gold standard for a successful program in New Mexico. And, the things that he does to motivate the kids and to keep them hungry and continuing to get better. And he just does an amazing job. And it's, he's very well deserving of all the recognition he gets because that's really hard to do.
Yeah, it is. So last thing for you, when will the offseason truly begin? You mentioned spring break coming up. Your wife's going to put you to work. You think she would give you a break a little bit, like, wait till the end of the school year?
Well, she's been holding down the fort since October, so it's time for me to do some housework and cook dinner and go to the grocery store. So she needs a well-deserved some time off for her.
So when will you sit down and start plotting the off season?
we've kind of already started kind of looking at, where we'd like to go or where we'd like to play this summer, but we'll start kind of getting back in the gym more and doing some spring tournaments after spring break, which April the 8th, we'll return to school and then we'll get back at it.
Well, many congratulations. As you said in the post-game press conference after you beat Valley, I mean, this team was elevating your blood pressure all season with just one. I mean, you go 5-0 in overtime. We didn't even mention that. You went 5-0 in overtime this year, 2 against St. Pius, West Mesa, Centennial, and then, of course, the Valley game. So 5-0 in overtime, and other games, as you mentioned, that went down to the wire that didn't even go into overtime. So many congratulations on a state championship season, and we appreciate you coming in. So we thank Justin Woody for his time today.
Great. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed talking to you. Thanks.
No, as always. And real quick, before I get out of here, I wanted to circle back real quick to the girls' state tournament and talk about the state champions that we had this year. We'll work from bottom to front. Fort Sumner and House completes the sweep for that school. They beat Logan 54-36, and that was a tough week for Logan. You may have heard the story about a New Mexico State police officer who was killed in the line of duty. He was from Logan, has family there. So that was an emotional few days for the Logan girls program, for the whole town, really. I mean, all these small towns in New Mexico. When people say everybody knows everybody, this is true in towns and communities and villages like Logan. So Fort Sumner and House gets the title there. Penasco, the girls, the lowest seed to win state this year on either side. They were a 6 seed. They beat Tularosa 39-36 for the 2A title. Navajo Preps girls, Coach Rainey Crisp, who's been at this a long while, and she's done a tremendous job with the Lady Eagles. They beat number 1 Tohatchee 41-26. Those two were district rivals, knew each other extremely well, just as you did with St. Pius during the course of the year. Kirtland Central's girls win their 21st state title, extending their own state record. El Dorado is second on this list with 14. Kirtland Central beats St. Pius 45-33. And, a special mention to Bria Rohde, the St. Pius girls coach, who I covered as an athlete at Rio Rancho. She got to the pit a couple of times, and I think once in the I think one year they lost in overtime to Mayfield in the semifinals, going back to around the turn of the century. And Bria, I love Bria. She's been a great kid to cover. She's not a kid anymore, of course. But it was nice to see her get a chance to play or coach for a state championship, the one that she never got a chance to do with Bob McIntyre at Rio Rancho. So they're going to be back. St. Pius had a terrific season. They do lose their best player, Alyssa Mays, but Bree knows basketball as well as any girls coach out there. So congratulations to St. Pius. And, of course, congratulations to Devin Manning at Kirtland Central. Kirtland is his alma mater. So that is title number 21 for Kirtland Central, which is just, they are basically the Artesia football of girls basketball here in New Mexico. And then, of course, the 5A state championship game. Sandia's girls win state for the first time since 2017. They beat Volcano Vista 49-45. That was a tremendous game. As a matter of fact, that game and then the Highland Valley boys game, we had those back-to-back. I thought those were the two best games we had in the pit all week. We did not have, honestly, a lot of good basketball at the pit last week. It was, some years are just like that. Some years are great. You have one fantastic game after another. This year we didn't have that. There were a lot of mediocre to poor games, but we had the 5A girls followed by the 4A boys giving us a lot of great basketball on that Saturday. So Sandia wins state. Volcano, it would be hard to explain how good a job Lisa Villarreal does coaching Volcano Vista. They've been in the state championship game 5 straight years now, which is just a tremendous accomplishment. They knocked out Hobbs, the defending champion, in the semifinals. Sandia was down 12 points at the end, near the end of the third quarter to Farmington. Came back, got a late three-pointer from Audrey Wright to win the semifinal game, 61-58. And they were down 8 to Volcano near the end of the third quarter in the championship game and came from behind and won 49-45. Sydney Benally, who was just amazing the whole year, the Gatorade Player of the Year named last week. Sydney scored 35 of Sandia's 49 points in the state championship game. No way you could overstate how great she was this whole season, and especially on the biggest stage on Saturday. So congratulations to all the 10 state champions. And that, for me, will do it for our Fast Break podcast. We're going to have a spring podcast starting next week. I'm not sure what shape exactly it will take. We may have different guests from various sports, not just spring sports. So we're gonna move this forward through the end of the school year. We'll talk some more next week when I come back in. In the meantime, thank you for watching all season. You can find the podcasts, mine, Jeff Grammer's, at abqjournal.com. You can find them on YouTube. And as always, we encourage you to read, hear, and watch. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the basketball season. I have as well. And we'll talk again soon. Thanks.